And boys. All right. Meanwhile, let's talk about the D.C. scandals. Right now, let's focus in on the one where the Department of Justice cracking down.
We should have a wheel to spin.
Trying to prosecute journalism. Eric Holder yesterday met with a handful of news editors. Actually, they had twice as many government officials than journalists. And essentially what he said was, yeah, AP thing, Rosen thing, we probably overdid it. So going forward, what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we broaden the circle of officials who have to agree when we issue a subpoena. Now, keep in mind, on the affidavit involving James Rosen, it was the Attorney General himself who signed off on it. So apparently they're going to have the Attorney General and somebody who knows what they're doing sign off on
So they did
something going forward.
Not only that, they discussed it as well as signed it. So we couldn't even say, well, I signed a bunch of documents like Hillary Clinton said. So not attending the meeting because of these words, off the record. Fox News, CNN, New York Times, Huffington Post, and the National Journal, and the AP all did not attend. Showing up, the Wall Street Journal, ABC, the Washington Post, the LA Times, Chicago Tribune, USA Today. Here's the good news. Word leaked out about what happened. At which time it was a good listening tour where they're going to have tighter restrictions. They're going to learn to go high-level review of subpoenas before they go into a reporter's phone records. And he has until July 12th to come up with some recommendations for the president.
Is anyone else appreciating the irony that this meeting that he's been holding with media representatives about how to have greater transparency and work better was off the record? I mean, this again.
They took so much heat, though. They did change the terms. They
said
but you can describe it generally.
Okay, you can describe it generally.
Yeah.
Their first instinct was, we're going to have off-the-record meetings about how to have a better relationship and have more media transparency, which is why Fox News set it out, as well as the New York Times and everything, as you said. But interestingly, amidst all of this, there was an act, it was suggested in 2007, that would have helped with transparency for the media. And in fact, at that time, Senator Barack Obama was one of the co-sponsors of this bill that was supposed to allow for more transparency from the government and for the media to better do its job. But once he became president, Barack Obama suddenly felt a little bit differently about this act that he had once supported.
So, in other words, Barack Obama was for the SHIELD Act before he was against the SHIELD Act, but now he is for the SHIELD Act again. Oh, man, he just outdid John Kerry. Can Eric Holder survive this particular scandal? Because there are many people on both sides of the aisle who said it's time for him to go. Alan West weighed in on this with Greta last night.
You look at the Fast and Furious, you look at his mishandling of the new Black Panther voter intimidation case, and I think that now you've reached a tipping point for Attorney General Eric Holder when you start to use your power to go after the media. And you see that not just on the conservative side, but also on the liberal side, many people calling for him to step down. He's now become a drag chute on the president. You have had a media that has made excuses for Eric Holder and really for this entire administration, you know, more times than not. And so there is a level of we can act with impunity. There is a level of we're above, you know, the scrutiny of these the Congress or what have you. I mean, understand we voted to hold him in contempt for Fast and Furious. And so now all of a sudden, you know, you have turned your guns on those who have tried to protect you, and they're not very appreciative of that.
The Wall Street Journal's Kim Strassel writes that this is the one scandal the White House fears most, even though the polls say they should be more worried about the IRS. And here's why. Because the media has always been in their corner. He's mocked it, he's joked about it, but it's the fact.
Cheerleaders.
And in this instance, even though the public doesn't care as much, the media does. People like Bill Press have come out and said, this guy's got to go because of this, and that reflects on President Obama. If you lose the media, they lose any type of momentum for having any type of gains in the midterms. So that is why something has to happen, and that is why I look for something to happen. Shocking yesterday, or was it the day before, Jonathan Turley in the USA Today writes an editorial. He's somewhat of a liberal professor over at George Washington. He says, no doubt about it, this guy is supposed to be a sin eater, and he has got to go. He'll be joining us in about 10 minutes.
One of the things we do know that the journalists and the editors did tell Mr. Holder yesterday was, hey, by the way, you overdid it. So remember, they're not giving out any details other than the broad strokes of what happened, and that's broadly what happened.
All right, we'll hear from Jonathan Turley in about 3 minutes. Meanwhile,